Balancing things. Whew. This is a bayonet from World War II. Pretty crazy. I'm not going to open it up though. But balancing things in general, just balancing different aspects of our lives, time with family, time with children, time for ourselves. I think it's something a lot of us are trying to figure out what's the right allocation. I know I, for one, am someone who, loves to change things up on a regular basis. And I say loves, but realistically I don't love it. It's just something that I do because I am always trying to figure out what's the right balance. Having different goals and stuff like that. But today, I think that, in light of all the different things that are being said online around the video game industry, which is kind of crazy, there's a lot of negativity around the video game industry. I think that there's an opportunity maybe to, as I said a few cups back, respect but reevaluate how to balance some of these different things in our lives. And as always, I have different ways of talking about it because I have a story or different stories or life examples that I want to give today. So that's what we'll do. I'm someone who has been, and we're going to get real honest, really self-conscious about a lot of things in my life. One of them is my physical appearance because I grew up very overweight. Side note, new coffee alert. We're having a new coffee today. A yummy, yummy coffee, and we're doing it through the B60 pour-over method. If you want to learn more about how to make a cup of coffee, I tried last cup to teach you guys during the cup. I think instead I'm just going to do stuff off stream and do little coffee classes in the Discord. So join the Discord and I'll do little coffee classes. I think that's a more appropriate place. I'm purging the grinder because I have old coffee in here, so yeah. And now that it's purged, I can measure out let's go with 25 today. I think 25, 400, the standard is going to be good. So we'll do 25 grams of coffee, 400 grams of water, and we'll call it a day there. But as I was saying, I have been self-conscious about so many things about myself, whether it's the fact that I quit everything all the time, or changed stuff, my interest has changed, or just being the new guy at work. I'm always like, how are others looking at me? And more importantly, how am I looking at me? And I know that, as always, what does this have to do with video games? Just cool it, dude. We'll get there. With refocusing and also with just kind of seeing how a lot of things are changing and trying to figure out how to balance things in our lives, I've changed a lot of things in my life for that balance. One thing that I'm having a hard time coming to terms with is something as different as working out. I've worked out at great capacity before. I have been someone who was competitive locally in my workout style of CrossFit. Enjoyed it. Was never really good at it, but I competed and had fun competing. I have been in accidents and injured, and so my capacity's changed quite a bit. And so I've tried to change different styles of working out. Because of my prolonged and somewhat annoying, persistent self-image issues, I've always looked at other people and been like, I want to look like that. And so I've been trying so hard to fight for my life to get onto different types of working outs to change the way that my body looks. Every single time I do that, I run into the same three problems. One, I'm by myself in my garage, so my motivation is pretty lacking, but with lack of motivation, you introduce discipline and you can still get the job done. But two, socialization. I don't have anyone to talk to, and that is really, really hard. But the last one is the real one that causes the issue, and that is three, time. As much as I would love to have the time to work on certain aspects of my life, such as my body and get more muscles on my body, because more muscles means I look more like a, superhero, I have to come to terms with the fact that in order to do so, I have to sacrifice a great deal of other things. Now, can I get muscles and do all this stuff by waking up early and doing it first thing in the morning like I do with a CrossFit class? Sure. But also, it comes down to what is actually going to be sustainable? What is actually going to be able to be carried out through the day-to-day? Which is really what it comes down to and what a lot of this conversation is geared around, which is what is sustainable? How do we get through some of these challenges we have with time or stuff like that? Because I, for one, am someone who I wake up around 5 a.m. to get some quiet time in before the day begins. because my children start to rise anywhere between 6:15 and 6:45. And so at least at 5 a.m., I'm able to grant myself a little bit of solace, where I get some work done if I wasn't organized the day before, plan my day, and kind of go on from there. Now, I know myself. Will I go into my garage and get the workout in? Not at 5 a.m. by myself, but can I drive to the local gym and do a CrossFit class? Absolutely. And I think what that has to do with is just being self-aware of my situation. And looking at video games as a whole, and that was my example for this, looking at video games and how I approach video games, and going into the future, especially kind of understanding what the future of gaming looks like, I think that some decisions need to be made to understand what the landscape's going to be and the time domain, right? Understanding that I'm at a point in my life where the requirements that are in place in order for me to have prolonged video game sessions are for me to isolate myself and put myself into a place, this office, and do things that way. And I know that I've talked at length, and I'll continue to talk about it because it's kind of my journey right now, but I know I talked at length about PC gaming, and a lot of people are like, well, PC gaming is no different than PlayStation or Xbox. As far as location's concerned, you still have to sit in the same spot. Yes, you're correct. But there's a very, very huge difference between playing Final Fantasy VII Remake through Steam Launcher on my PC and playing Final Fantasy VII Remake on my PlayStation 5. And that big difference is my Steam Deck. It allows for me to have a more flexible gaming experience. Less optimal, honestly, when it comes to visuals, but more flexible nonetheless. Is it going to give me the best results? Two, that's going to be blue. Is it going to give me the best results when it comes to performance and visuals? No, it's not. Much like how bodybuilding, something I've always wanted to do, but can't bring myself to doing it because it's so boring as crap. But bodybuilding will give me the best physical results. But what it takes is isolation and a dedication to a process that is outside of my realm of ability or my ability right now. And so this video is therapy for myself because this is my Carhartt hoodie, but underneath is my workout gear because I spent an hour agonizing over going into my garage and working out, which wasted all that time because my kid was going to wake up in like 15 minutes now. And so I'm like, well, there goes that opportunity because there's nap time. But I had this realization as I'm looking at my gear and I'm like, I'm willing to give up some of the performance, right, that happens because of the Steam Deck for the practicality that exists with that device. And I think that that's something that can be extrapolated and applied to many aspects of my life. Where can I remove some of the blockers in my different day-to-day decision making? What things exist in my world that are limiting me from getting the things done that I want to do? When it comes to video games, location and time are the two biggest. I don't have that much time to play video games, and the location at which those video games need to be played is somewhere at which I am isolating myself and becoming less present as a father, which is a huge deal. Now today, being Wednesday, is a day that my daughter goes and she hangs out with her cousin at my in-laws' house. My boy, though, stays here with me. My 9-month-old boy, who crawls around on the floor, plays with whatever toys, and eats Bomba. Am I going to sit there and interact with this 9-month-old for the 3 hours he's awake in between naps? Or 4 now? Not all 4. Not all 4 at all. Oh, that's really yummy. What is that? Ooh, that's really yummy. A Tanzania? It's a pea berry. Wash process from Perk. Be balanced? Perk? It's this PERCCOFFEE. Perk coffee. You're featured. Perk coffee. That's really good. That's really good. Oh, that's really tasty. I like that quite a bit. You want to talk about balance? This cup is very balanced. That's really nice. I very much so am enjoying that. Oh, baby. I like that a lot. But understanding, right? Back to that. Understanding the situation you're in. At the beginning of my video game reintroduction, I had... This is 2021? I didn't have a kid yet. She was born... Or did I have a kid already? She was born in 2020. So, I did have a kid. It was January 26th of 2021. My daughter was born September 22nd of 2020. Understanding decision making comes due and needs to be reassessed on a very regular basis to make sure that there is some sort of balance maintained, right? I look at what I do and how I interact with different hobbies, and I mentioned this yesterday on stream, and I thought it was a really good thing to talk about. Is when you have kids, you have a few things going on. One, you have your first kid. If you have multiple, it requires you to have multiple kids. But if you have multiple kids, you have your first one, you fall in love with that child, you're like, this is the best child ever, I love this child. I don't know how I could love anything ever anymore, right? And super stereotypical things, but hey, there's a reason why it's always said. It's because it's very true. And then you find out you're having another one, and you're like, how in this good green earth could I have the capacity to continue to love at the same level? I thought I was tapped out. Well, you do and you don't. And you absolutely are able to love that child at the same capacity of your other child, and you get more love stores in there. But the cost that exists is stuff that you cherished and loved before. Stuff. Not truly important people, and actually just people, but stuff, things, possessions, hobbies, stuff like that you absolutely adored. That's where some of that love gets removed and placed into your children. And now these things change dramatically. And I think that was absolutely one of the biggest driving forces as to how I changed what I'm doing here, is because all of my love for certain things and all of my excitement around certain things fleeted in order to free up extra love space, right? RAM, right? Internal RAM to love this second child, this beautiful boy that I have. And in order for me to balance things properly, I've had to assess and be like, okay, how can I continue down this road? How can I continue down doing these things without sacrificing my new responsibilities? And I know I've talked about it before, but today it felt a little different because we had a great stream last night. I'm trying to stream on Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time, so join in if you want. I don't know how consistent I'm going to be able to do, but last night was great, and I'm hoping that next Tuesday will be great as well. I may try to do a second day a week, but those aren't promised. But the Tuesdays, that's what I'm working really hard to maintain, okay? But after last night's stream and a lot of the conversations that were happening in the stream, I had this, kind of introspective moment afterwards where I watched a little bit of the things that I had marked, as well as tried to learn from some of the stuff. And when I was just running my mouth, that was the biggest thing that I took away from it, was that when you have these things in your life that get introduced that require attention, love, care, and provision, everything else gets reevaluated. Because there are a finite amount of resources that you're given every single day, right? Whatever you want to say, month, whatever. You only get a certain amount of love, right? And so I, again, as always, overcomplicate something as simple as playing video games, but it's something that is always getting reassessed, because if we're being honest, dads, like, in the grand scheme of all the things that we do, as important as it may be to us, if we're truly in tune and plugged into what it takes to be a good family man and father, it's probably last place. It's probably so close to it's on the chopping block, so close to the knife, almost every decision. I mean, if you're in that same boat with me, just let me know down in the comments. They're like, hey, yeah, I know. There's always that like, is this it? Right? Because if at any moment you hear from your spouse or your kids, like not in the definitive, these definitive words, definitive words, that makes sense. Dad or husband, I need you to stop playing video games. But if you were to hear something along those lines, you would go, okay. And you'd cease to exist. And so it's always there. It's always being reevaluated. It's always being looked at like, am I truly serving my family by including this as a part of my daily activities? And I think in doing so, it requires maybe a different dose, maybe a different avenue, right? I know that I've joked about being a deck daddy and there's stuff like that. And yesterday's cup about the family sharing plan, and just thinking more about it, I thought, if we're changing our mindsets and we're looking at video games from a different perspective of like, I'm doing this to like help this be a part of my refueling process, I'm using it to decompress at the end of my day or whatever it may be, but then later being like, I want to include this in an activity that I do with my children or share this with my wife, a game that she might enjoy. We start having to make decisions that what's going to be the best way to do this? How am I going to be able to best share this with these people that I care about, right? And I'm so impressed, as I said yesterday, with the way that, Steam is doing it, that it's kind of sparked a lot of these conversations. These conversations aren't here because it's like, I want to talk about this, so let's talk about it. They're more like, wow, this is a revelation I had in reevaluating the very thing that I love, playing video games, to understand whether it works in my life, being a father, husband, and someone who needs to make sure he takes care of his physical ability, right? Not just going out and trying to look yoked, but actually going out and staying healthy, eating right, shopping, making sure that I'm taking care of the things that need to be taken care of, like keeping my kids on a very, very high protein diet, keeping them strong, keeping them active, right? And being intentional with every aspect of my life. Is playing video games still something that I can do? Is it something that I should keep in this space? And the only way that I've been able to rationalize it, as I step off camera for a brief moment, is if I can say, hey, I don't have to be here and I can always have an ear turned to you. And it's because I have access anywhere. Whether it's this, whether it's the Asus ROG Ally, and I point over here because I still haven't returned it yet technically. It's still here. Whatever it may be, I think that there are a lot of things that are now possible as things go on. And I believe strongly that in reevaluating the balance of video games and the balance of different things in my life, I've become overly thankful that we're seeing a shift in the way things are being done. I think that, to bring it home here, portable PCs and this kind of access to video games this way with a Steam library or whatever it may be on Asus or whatever, is not only going to be the future of gaming to a good amount of people, but it is absolutely arguably one of, if not the only ways that us responsible fathers are going to be able to maintain this hobby without there being a tremendous amount of sacrifice to the hobby itself, i.e. playing once every 2 weeks. And so to land the plane on this, I think whenever you have new life events, whenever you have frustrating moments, whenever you're having things that are somewhat complex in nature, and you're like, I don't know how I'm going to balance or do these things, reevaluation of the things that you have in your life that are otherwise superfluous, things that don't genuinely bring inherent value, I would say. If you were to walk into my office and look at my video games, you wouldn't look at them and be like, oh man, these are valuable to you in your personal development. I would have to explain it to you, right? And so I think that reevaluating and understanding balance is huge. And I know this is very heady for something as silly as a Steam Deck. But hey, this is the cross I bear. I think way too much about stuff that people often don't think at all about. And thank you for giving me a platform to kind of thought dump, because I don't know what I'd do without this, honestly. This has been so therapeutic, these video journals, because that's what it is, right? We've still not, vernal? I think vernal is what I'm going to end on. Super unrelated, though. If you got this far, you're a true OG, but let me know down in the comments how you want this coffee information if you want it. Check this out. It's pretty cool. This is the Akira Toriyama manga theater. It is a bunch of work that Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z and everything, as well as Chrono Trigger and Sandland, which I played a demo of, which is going to be so fun on Steam Deck. This is all of the little like one-off comics that he's done. How cool is that? Huge shout out to Chase for telling me about this. This just lives here now, holding his two other works up. I think I did it like this. Yeah, that's how we do it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for enjoying this cup with me. Hopefully your cup of coffee was just as delicious as mine, and if it wasn't, then click the link to get something from Trade. Maybe this by perk. I don't know. All right, let's put this away. I'm gonna go play some video games while my kid eats Bomba, which is peanut butter Cheetos. Okay, happy gaming.